The winter sunlight poured gently into the modest living room where Mrs. Jung Hae, the mother of actress Jung So-min, sat with a cup of warm tea clasped between her hands. Her eyes, though touched by the faint wrinkles of years gone by, still held the warmth of a mother's pride and the depth of a mother's worry. She had agreed to speak for the first time about a month when her daughter's life quietly shifted into a new chapter. That was both miraculous and terrifying. "I've watched my daughter face storms I never imagined," she began, her voice soft, each word chosen with care. But he was her shelter. It began quietly, with no fanfare, no cameras, and no celebratory announcement. One chilly evening, So-min called her mother into her bedroom and, without a word, handed her a small white envelope. Inside was a folded paper, her pregnancy test result. Two bright lines stared back, and Mrs. Jung's heart leapt before the gravity of it all settled in. For any mother, the news of a grandchild is pure joy. But for the mother of a beloved actress still navigating the height of her career, the emotions were tangled. She looked happy, Mrs. Jung recalled, but her hands were shaking. She was already thinking about how she could possibly handle this while the world was watching her. At the time, Jung So-min was in the middle of a demanding filming schedule. Early mornings on set bled into late nights of promotional appearances. The physical exhaustion was one thing. To maintain her public image, smiling, poised, and graceful, was an unspoken weight she carried daily. Within days, the pregnancy symptoms began to set in. The morning sickness was relentless, often lasting the entire day. There were days she could barely stand, her mother said. But she smiled for the cameras like nothing was wrong. In private, Mrs. Jung would hold her as she trembled from nausea, her body fighting to adapt to the life growing inside her. It was during this fragile time that Jung Hae entered the story, not as a fellow celebrity, not as a romantic lead, but as a man quietly determined to be her anchor. So-min told him about the pregnancy. There was no hesitation in his response. He smiled through tears, reached for her hand, and said, "We'll face everything together." And from that moment, he kept his word. In the early weeks, he learned from Mrs. Jung how to make her favorite soups, mastering recipes with the precision of someone who knew each ingredient was a way to say, "I love you." Many nights, after wrapping his own projects, he would stop by the market, pick up fresh vegetables, and arrive at her doorstep close to midnight. Mrs. Jung remembered finding him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, carefully tasting the broth until it was just right. He wasn't just feeding her, she said. He was taking care of her in a way only someone who truly loves could. Their first visit to the doctor was a quiet, nerve-filled morning in a discreet private clinic in Seoul. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Muffled sounds of footsteps in the corridor only heightened their anxiety. Mrs. Jung sat beside her daughter while Hae held her hand, his thumb brushing gently across her knuckles. The ultrasound screen flickered, and there it was, the tiniest flicker of a heartbeat. Mrs. Jung's voice trembled as she recalled that moment. "I saw his shoulders finally relax. He was holding his breath until he knew she was safe." Well, they chose to keep the news within a small circle. Both feared the relentless intrusion of the media. Paparazzi lenses had followed them for years. Different. This was a fragile, private chapter that could be easily crushed under public scrutiny. So-min wore loose dresses during events, her stylist carefully choosing outfits that concealed the gentle swell of her belly. She kept working for as long as her body would allow, driven by both dedication and a fear of letting others down. But behind the scenes, others knew the truth. Every public smile was followed by a quiet moment of exhaustion backstage. The weight of secrecy pressed down hardest at night. Mrs. Jung would sit with her daughter, the two of them wrapped in silence, knowing that the world would one day know, wishing they could protect this moment forever. And yet, as heavy as it was, she was grateful for the constant presence of Jung Hae. He was there even when she didn't ask. She said, "Sometimes, the greatest love is shown in the moments when no one is watching." It was during these early months that Mrs. Jung first noticed the subtle change in her daughter, not just the physical signs of pregnancy. Quiet vulnerability she had never seen before. "Min has always been strong," her mother said. "But I could see she was learning that real strength sometimes means leaning on someone else." And while she leaned, Hae never faltered. If she woke at 3 in the morning, restless or craving a particular food. He was already on his way out the door to get it. If she was too tired to answer calls, he handled them for her. If she needed to cry, he simply sat beside her in silence. Yet, as Mrs. Jung revealed, the hardest moments were still ahead. One rainy night, when the city streets glistened under street lamps, and sharp pain gripped So-min's body, she gasped, her hands instinctively wrapping around her abdomen. Her mother's voice caught as she remembered the fear that seized her. We thought we were ready for anything, until that night. The memory of that night still clings to Mrs. Jung's voice. She had been in the kitchen, preparing ginger tea, when she heard her daughter's soft but panicked cry from the bedroom. Dropping everything, she rushed in to find So-min doubled over, her face pale, her breath shallow. Mrs. Jung's hands shook as she reached for her phone, calling the one person she knew would answer immediately. Jung Hae picked up on the first ring. "I'm coming," all he said before hanging up. Outside, rain poured in relentless sheets. Minutes, he arrived, his hair and clothes soaked through, the water dripping from his sleeves as he lifted So-min into his arms. They sped through the wet streets to the hospital, the city blurring past in streaks of neon and rain. The emergency room smelled of antiseptic and urgency. Doctors and nurses moved quickly, their voices a mixture of professional calm and quiet concern. The attending physician, Dr. Lee Ji-hoon. Immediate monitoring. Mrs. Jung clutched her daughter's hand, while Hae stood on the other side, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on every movement of the medical team. The hours crawled. Finally, Dr. Lee approached them with a measured tone. There was a complication, but it was manageable with rest, care, reduced stress. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was a warning, one they all took to heart. From that night on, Jung Hae refused to leave her side. He turned down work, rearranged commitments, and settled into the stiff hospital chair beside her bed. Each morning, Mrs. Jung would wake to find him there, head bowed, hand resting gently over So-min's. He would adjust her blanket before she even opened her eyes. Mrs. Jung recalled. He didn't need to say much, his presence said everything. Word of his frequent hospital visits began to leak. Paparazzi caught sight of him entering and leaving, his cap pulled low. But it didn't take long for speculation to ignite. Rumors swirled online, some accurate, far from the truth. Their agencies debated releasing a statement but ultimately agreed, the priority was her health, not public curiosity. Through it all, the couple remained focused on the only thing that mattered, the safety of their unborn child. Weeks passed, and with them came a gradual improvement. The day Dr. Lee announced that her condition had stabilized was a quiet victory. That evening, the three of them, So-min, her mother, Han, gathered at home for a simple meal. Mrs. Jung prepared seaweed soup, traditional dish for recovery, and the air was warm with the scent of sesame oil and garlic. Halfway through the meal, they felt it, the baby's first kick. So-min froze, eyes wide, before breaking into a tearful smile. Han reached out, his hand trembling against her stomach, and when he felt it too, tears streamed down his face. He cried before she did, Mrs. Jung said with a soft laugh. It was like he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. Then on, his care deepened. He read to her at night, sometimes from novels, sometimes from children's books they planned to read together as a family. He massaged her hands when they cramped, fetched her snacks in the middle of the night, and found new ways to make her laugh when anxiety crept in. He has this way of making her forget the pain, Mrs. Jung said. Even just his silence is comforting. They made a decision together to slow down their public lives. Upcoming projects were postponed, appearances cancelled. It was a choice that some might see as risky in the entertainment world, but for them, it was the only choice. Mrs. gave her blessing wholeheartedly. "I've never been more certain that my daughter chose the right man," she said. "I've seen how he loves her, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard." The last memory Mrs. Jung shared was perhaps the most tender. One quiet evening, she passed by the bedroom and paused at the doorway. Inside, Jung Hae sat on the edge of the bed, reading aloud from a brightly illustrated children's book. His voice was soft, steady, and filled with an emotion that was more than just anticipation, it was devotion. Beside him, So-min rested her head on his shoulder, her eyes closed. a faint smile playing at her lips. The room felt warm. Not from the lamp's light. The unspoken love that wrapped around them like a blanket. In his presence, Mrs. Jung said, "It's breaking slightly." My daughter's pain became strength, and her fear became hope. That truth. She found her own peace, knowing that the life her daughter was building would be one filled not only with joy, but with a love that would never let go.